All right. Good morning, everyone. Give me just 1 second. Let me check to make sure that we are live and everything's working. Looks like we're in good shape. Okay. Welcome to today's Museums from Your Home live stream presented by the University of Alabama Museums. My name is Allie Sorlie, and I am the Education Outreach Coordinator at the Alabama Museum of Natural History. Usually you see Rebecca Johnson here, the Communications Specialist with the Museum of Natural History, or with the UA Museums, helping us out. But today she is off doing some other really wonderful work, and so we said that we would be able to help her out. So please forgive me. It's my first time hosting a live stream. I'm sure there will be some issues, but we'll work our way through it. So today I am joined by Lindsey Gordon, Education Outreach Coordinator at Moundville Archaeological Park. And we are going to be discussing archaeology versus paleontology today. So while we're broadcasting, please feel free to ask questions in the comments. And remember, this is all live, so anything can happen, which we have learned and seen several times throughout our live stream, our most recent live stream schedules. So in case Facebook has any issues or YouTube has any issues or we have any issues, please just hang in with us. They are trying their best to meet the needs of online activity during this time, and it is definitely ramped up a little bit, so we might see some issues. But now that we've gotten this all out of the way, let's kind of get into it for today. So, all right, so Lindsey and I, when we were discussing different live stream topics that we were interested in, Lindsey and I had this great brainstorming session, and we learned that we both run into and meet lots of people who are really interested in archaeology and paleontology, but sometimes don't have a great understanding or are wanting to have a better understanding of what those two fields of study are. So we thought it might be a really good idea to do a live stream topic on archaeology and paleontology, because they are incredibly interesting fields of study and fields of study that Lindsey and I deal with very closely on a regular basis. And so we came up with a 4-part series. This is the first of the 4-part series that goes into archaeology and paleontology as fields of study. But we're really excited about it. Today is going to be kind of an introduction to the two. And then next Friday, we'll have a deep dive into archaeology with Lindsey, right?
Yes.
And then the Friday after that will be a deep dive into paleontology with the Natural History Museum. And then the last day, the Friday after that, will be kind of a recap of the two, an activity and a game. So we're really excited about this. This is a topic that both of us have been interested in doing, I think. Wouldn't you say, Lindsey?
Yes, I'm really excited about doing it.
Yes. So we thought maybe the best way to go about this would be to talk with an archaeologist and a paleontologist. And the best news about that is that we have an actual archaeologist on live stream with us today, Lindsey Gordon.
Surprise!
She's a paleontologist. I'm sorry. She's an archaeologist by training and by job, because you're an archaeologist by your job. And then we'll be talking to a paleontologist. Just kidding. We're going to be talking to Allie, who plays a paleontologist on live streams today. So, but we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. We're going to learn a little bit about the beginning, or just introduce the topic of archaeology and paleontology, and we'll leave more of the details for the next 2 live streams where we get to go into it a little deeper. Okay, so Lindsey, we ready for our interviews?
Yes. Hold on, I gotta transform.
Ooh, I do too. There it is.
Yep. Hold on.
Wait, we transformed the same way.
We did. I got one more piece.
Oh, okay.
I gotta be seen. It's important.
Excellent. Oh, I don't have that vest.
It's important when you're out in the woods that you are visible. So Okay.
All right. Officially transformed.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So, hey, archaeologist Lindsey Gordon, how are you doing?
Good. Hello, paleontologist Allie Sorlie. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's so nice to see you. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Having a good day?
You know, having a great day. Having a great day. Excited to be here with you.
Yes. So,
So, you're an archaeologist. What do you do?
oh, funny you asked. So, I study human culture. So, I basically study human history and prehistory through excavations of sites, not always, and artifacts, because we do geophysics as well, and artifact analysis, and even other physical remains. So, what most people don't realize or understand about archaeology is that it is a science. So, that is extremely important distinction. So, we have to have a research design, which means we come up with a scientific hypothesis, and we use a scientific method. I know these are some words that you guys are familiar with, to figure out where we would like to study and what we would like to study. And then after we do that, that is when we are able to go into the field and do our field work, which is what everybody else is also familiar with. Everyone's really familiar with the field work. And that's where we find all of the artifacts. Artifacts are things made by humans, and features, which we'll get into next week a little bit. And we do our wonderful field work scientifically and carefully, because the reason why we have to have a research design is because archaeology is also destructive, and we want to make sure that we keep all of that information. So after we do that, we get all of if we collect any artifacts or if we gather any artifacts during our scientific discovery, then we take them back and we actually do analysis. So what do those things tell us about the people that were there? And then after we do our analysis, we actually get to share that information with everyone. So that's how we end up giving that out, all that information to everybody. So it's just like, we're basically like a couple years from now or hundreds of years from now, people are going to be able to study what you ate, or what you're currently eating, or what your house, your home looks like, what pots you're using, what spoons you have, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I study. What about you?
Yeah, so as a paleontologist, or at least one who plays one on a live stream today, but paleontologists do very similar things to what you're talking about, actually, except for they study ancient life. So paleontologists study fossil remains, and fossil remains can be everything from plants and animals to fungi to bacteria and other single-celled organisms, and they can be the fossil themselves, where those organisms have been replaced by rock material, or impressions of those organisms were left behind in rock material. And paleontologists use those fossils to study ancient life and get a better idea of the life and the environment, which is interesting because I think you had mentioned that too about archaeology, right? So it's not just learning about the organisms themselves, which is definitely important, but it's also learning about the world that they existed in. And similarly, I'm imagining to yours, paleontologists can use this information about ancient life and the fossils that they're finding to understand today, the present, better as well, which is cool. So we can understand what and the environments were like in in the past, but also have a better understanding of what we're in today, in modern days. So I mean, paleontologists can study things like oyster shells, right? They can study things in oyster shells and study the growth of oyster shells, much like how oyster shells, oysters grow every year. This now, they did the same thing in the past, and so they can study growth patterns in the oyster shells to see if maybe the environment that they were in at the time wasn't really conducive to to oysters being able to grow really well at that time, or maybe it was a really great environment for oysters to grow well, and so they were able to grow a lot. Using all this information, you can kind of start to put together clues about what the past was like, and what that environment in the past was like. So paleontologists do very similar things, it sounds like, to archaeologists, just maybe a different area, a different content area. Because ours is ancient life, right? Paleontologists study ancient life, and archaeologists, like you said, human culture and history, right?
Right. And that we're both trying to figure out those clues and put them together.
Exactly. And we're both doing this using the scientific method, using scientific principles, and with as much detail and accuracy as possible, so that when we do share that information, that we can make sure that what we're sharing is the best story that we can put together, right? The best. Right. Excellent.
We try to give everybody as accurate as information that we possibly can.
Absolutely. Okay, so what scientific principles are there? Is there a scientific principle that you that you use a lot in your study?
Well, I think we might have one, and it's called the law of superposition. Do you mind if I show you one of my visual aids?
Whoa, that's really cool. What is law of superposition is a familiar term for paleontologists too. It's a familiar law.
So basically, the top or the bottom is the oldest portion, and the top is the newest. So basically how we basically try to dig everything on what we call stratigraphic layers. So this section would be one layer, this section would be one layer, and this section would be one layer. So we would try our best to dig from the top down to the bottom so that we, in a controlled environment, so that we can get a lot of accurate information, so that we know that the artifacts that would come out of this area would probably be more recent, and then the artifacts that come down from this area would be more prehistoric or older. So you guys use this principle as well?
Yeah, and a way that I think I really like to try to use to help describe that law is if we think about our own garbage cans in our own houses. So, if we take the garbage bag out at the end of the week and we put a new one in, let's say we take it out on Sunday, right? And put a new one in. The garbage that we put in the rest of Sunday is put in first in that bag, and then we'll fill it up with garbage that we put in on Monday, and we'll fill that up with garbage that we put in on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so if we think about that can, the oldest stuff that we have in that garbage can is going to be at the very, very bottom, and which just sounds like what you were just talking about with your really cool visual aid. Now, sometimes, as much as we would, I feel like you guys run into this too, but as much as you would want the layers to stay perfect and be in that exact order all the time, of course, that nature and life, it doesn't happen that way, right? Sometimes events can happen to kind of disrupt the layers a little bit.
Yeah. And so an archaeologist also has to be aware of that, and I know paleontologists do too, so that we have to be able to tell a difference in those events too, to make sure that we're also going back to giving the most accurate information. But sometimes there are different disturbances.
Yes, a disturbance in the force. No, disturbance in the layers. Yes. So that's really interesting that the law of superposition is used for both archaeology and paleontology. So I'm going to guess then that we'll have some other similarities too. Let's go into, what about your tools? What kind of tools do you use?
Well, I brought my toolkit today.
Oh.
It's a lot of stuff. I'm trying to move all my stuff out of the way. Yeah, it's a very large toolkit. But my most important tool is my notebook.
Oh.
Again, archaeology is a science, so we have to make sure that we're always saying, oh, you got one too. We're always taking great notes. One of my favorite aspects of my notebook is when we were talking about, also before I get to that, archaeologists Also, I have to always have a Sharpie, just saying. It's my Munsell book. So we were talking about the different layers earlier. So the Munsell book actually helps with the different changes of or colors in the soil. So as the soil changes as we go down, we can actually record. Oh, that's an empty page. Hold on.
we can record our notes on the empty pages.
Right. You can actually put the soil behind this one cell and try to figure out which colors it matches to. And then we actually check the texture of the soil as well. So that helps us figure out what the soil texture and the soil color is. And we can make a nice colorful picture at the very end since we're keeping up with our layers as we're going down and watch and see where the soil has changed. So that gives us some accurate information. Let's see.
It's always about that accurate information, isn't it, Lindsay?
It is, always. Let's see. I have lots of things, everyone. I got my gloves, my fancy gloves, which I love. Got to protect my hands. I have my first aid kit, because sometimes accidents happen.
Right.
I have my water, because you always have to stay hydrated. What else do I have in here? Oh, here's one that should be familiar that everyone knows. This is my trowel. So this is my trowel. And some people so there are two types of trowels.
Okay.
So there's this one, and then some people prefer a flat trowel. So we use our trowels so that we can control the different layers that we're digging in the soil. And we usually typically like to make a nice square. So Pythagorean's theorem, you're going to be using it.
What? You mean all that stuff I learned in high school I could use again?
Yep, you'll be using it all the time. So we also use Pythagorean's theorem in geophysics. So we're making things called grids, and in those grid areas, so that the grids are what helps to control our archaeological site, and it helps us figure out where the location of each portion of information will be located. So it gives us an overall map, which we'll talk about maps a little later too. So we make usually sometimes a 1x1 grid test unit. So we're testing a nice little square, or 2x2s, just depends on your fancy for or your research design. So when we're talking about making those units, of course, you need a tape measure to do that. And so the tape measure is used to help us square up our units. And when we get down in depth, we're able to use our tape measure to measure depths and create accurate maps. Let's see. And then I also have, I have my string, this bedazzled string for my test unit to help with my accurate depths, along with my line level. So these are all things that help inside of my test unit. Now we got my Hoover and my brushes, so I can brush the dirt in to make sure everything's all nice and clean. And I have smaller brushes for just in case I encounter an artifact. And smaller tools just in case as well. So, because you want to be delicate around those things. Another thing that's important is, I forgot to bring my camera, but archaeologists sometimes takes pictures to help keep up with that information as well. And so with that, you always need a handy dandy scale. So I have this tiny scale that's typically used for smaller things, like artifacts that might be in situ. And then I have a really large scale that can be used for test units and things of that nature if I want to take a picture of those. We typically use the metric system as a way of measuring things. So all of my rulers and stuff are metric. Here's a bag that we usually will keep artifacts and stuff in. So if we find something, we bag it and then we tag it as well so that we can keep up with things. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out what else I got in here. Oh, this one's important. So this, I don't know if I can open it. Yeah, here we go. This is my compass. So archaeologists have to be very decent with orienteering or knowing your directions and knowing which way is north so that we can also put those on our maps. And maps are important because they actually help an archaeologist show the connection between all of the artifacts that they find, all of the features, which we'll talk about next week, all of the ecofacts, which is another word to remember, and all of that against the larger landscape. So it's extremely important to have a compass when you're out in the field, just so you can find your way home. But also it's important to help us when we're making our maps and recording things accurately. Let's see, I got some root snips in here and my flag and tape to flag important things. Sometimes if you find, if you're encountering an archaeological site, you want to, sometimes we come into contact with native plants. So that's another thing we talked about. We have to know, so we want to flag them, or you come in contact with another feature. Maybe archaeologists also work on historic sites, so maybe you find a historic house or something. So you want to flag it and be able to come back to it. Or you might want to just flag the pins of your test unit so you don't trip over the string. Either way, it's important.
Multi-purpose flagging tape.
It is, and I think that's mainly all that I got in here. For right now, there's more, but I think that's all I have. What do you have in your toolkit?
Well, before we do that, we have a really great question I want to show you real quick. Someone asked, let's see, can you see it?
Keep up with my stuff? Sometimes, yeah, all the time. I do use checklists to keep up with all of the things, especially in larger sites. We have to use a checklist. So when we're taking notes, we use special forms as well. So like feature form, when we go down, the stratigraphy, we call that different levels. We have level forms. So we have different forms that we have to keep track of. And they usually, as Allie knows, and everyone that's worked with me, I'm extremely anal. So
she's a very organized and detail-oriented person.
Yes. So I have checklists for all of that. So yeah, I do have a checklist to keep up with all that great stuff.
I think, Lindsey, I think the best part about being so detail-oriented is that it makes you an excellent scientist.
Yes.
Yes. So a lot of the tools that you used looked very familiar.
Really?
Yeah, paleontologists use a lot flagging tape and pin flags, which I just realized that I didn't have my pin flag with me, but I feel like I know that you guys use pin flags too sometimes. Pin flags are like very, very thin, I guess, wire, and then with a flag on the top. They use them all the time. You'll see them a lot, like construction sites and stuff will use them too, so I bet you'll see them around. But pin flags are used often. Flagging tape is used often. Scales, metric system, a lot of those things you're talking about, but it all starts off with that notebook. Notebooks are incredibly important. Detailed notes, accurate information. It sounds like accurate information is a running theme for this topic for both of these fields of study. Yeah. Taking notes, keeping details, and accurate information. So brushes are something that paleontologists use often as well. Flagging tape, like I talked about, GPS coordinates.
Oh, yeah.
Now that so like your compass, this is that GPS coordinate, so we can take an accurate point, an accurate reading of where the specimen is that we're looking at, what we're digging, what we're brushing, what we're looking at. We want to know exactly where it is. More of those details that we were talking about and love so much. Oftentimes our phones now obviously are GPS capable, so you can, if you don't have one of these, you might be able to take your GPS coordinates with your phone. But one of my favorite ones that's used is rock hammer.
Ooh.
I know, isn't it cool? So rock hammers are an excellent tool for paleontologists to help break up some of that rock material that's used to help get to the specimen that you're looking at. But it sounds like a lot of the same things that you use are used by paleontologists as well. And I know that we'll both get into it a little bit more later on, but I think it's interesting that both of these sciences, even though we're studying very different things, have a lot in common as far as tools being used and maybe some of the methods being used. And also, I think we were talking about, research designs and all of those that are important and needed. You don't just kind of go out and find something. Although sometimes you go out, like paleontologists know that there's an opening in a certain rock formation and are able to visit that space and kind of find things, because you never really know what's going to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's different methods of collection too, which we'll get into some more when we get into the deep dive in paleontology.
Same for archaeology.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think, but the important thing is that, again, accurate information is kept. We keep notes. So like, if you are watching and your teacher tells you that you need to take notes in science, your teacher knows what's going on. Like, your teacher knows.
She does.
Notes in science are incredibly important. Excellent. So it sounds like the next couple of weeks for us are going to be really interesting.
Yes, I think they're going to be wonderful. I think they're also, I forgot to mention, I think, if my brain serves me correct, we might overlap in time of study a little bit, because I think the Clovis people actually hunted some mastodons and saber-tooths and things of that nature. Are those animals that you guys study or find fossils of?
Absolutely. Yes, that last Ice Age area is definitely an area of study for paleontologists. And even at the Museum of Natural History, there are some really wonderful specimens on display, exhibits on display that are of that time period, like mastodon skulls and mammoth and mastodon teeth, and like giant ground sloth bones and everything that's in that time period. So yeah, I guess we do sort of overlap a little bit, don't we?
I think so. That's cool.
That's really neat. Excellent. Okay, I'm thinking, let me make sure. So we've had some really great comments that have come in. We appreciate everyone commenting and being a part of today. We are asking if we have some backups for things that aren't analog. Always. Battery backups, always, right? Technology backups, always. I even feel like I have technology backups for this live stream today, just in case. But it sounds like that people might be really interested in learning, getting into deeper dives about archaeology and deeper dives about paleontology.
That's going to be great. We'll be excited to see them in the coming weeks too.
Yes, excellent. So we are going to, I think, wait to hear more details for next week. Each of these 4-part series are going to be kind of quick little 4-part series that you can use in your home. If you are, teaching kids while they're out of school right now, this might be something that could be used. And we'll always have the presentations and the PowerPoints and things that we're using available to you to download and use for your lessons or for your own edification at home. So I think we have covered a pretty nice basic understanding or beginning understanding of archaeology and paleontology. Lindsay, what do you think?
I think we're good.
Okay, so let's go ahead and save more of this information for the coming weeks. And let's see, hang on one second, I'm so sorry. Okay, so I think that this is going to do it for today's Museum from Your Home live stream. We'll be doing this every weekday, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., and each day will feature a different museum. Monday, we will be live from Moundville Archaeological Park from their Facebook page. So I think, Lindsay, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Erskine Ramsay theft of the 1980s with Dr. James Knight, or Vernon Knight.
Excellent. Excellent. So if you are enjoying museums from your home and would like to support us, please consider being a member of UA Museums at givemuseums.ua or give.ua.edu/museums. And for a full live stream schedule and links to our Color Art Collections coloring book and Discovering Alabama's online resources, including their free episodes and teacher guides, please visit UA Museums, Museums from Your Home. Speaking of Discovering Alabama, before I forget, Discovering Alabama has some really wonderful episodes that involve paleontologists and archaeologists that would be an excellent addition to this 4-part series that we're talking about right now. So if you check out the Discovering Alabama website and see their resources, you'll find some excellent resources that can help deepen our understanding of these two areas of study. Excellent. We hope you enjoy your day, and thank you for visiting UA Museums from your home.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.